Statistics estimate that 2 children are sold every minute.
They were put in cold water and they were beaten up in a terrible way.
For Dutch prosecutors, the Baran case was a warning that the Dutch experiment in legalizing prostitution had worsened, not solved, the problem of international sex slavery. Prostitution earns Holland 660 million euros every year. 4 million tourists flock to Amsterdam, most to stare at and often patronize the prostitutes working in its neon-lit windows.
You have a lot of families here.
Yeah, no,
with children.
lots of women, families,
pictures.
groups together.
Yeah. If we have a girl here who shares to me, I'm a victim of human trafficking.
Toos Himskerk has worked for 16 years with the women working in the windows of Amsterdam's red light district.
If you walk here, you even think and you want to believe they like the things what they are doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But the story behind them is so different than what you see.
Each street, she says, is organized by nationality.
There are certain streets where you have the South American transsexuals. Then there's another street where the majority are Hungarian girls. And then here you have the Spanish-speaking girls.
And how have things changed in the sex industry in Holland from, say, 15, 20 years ago to now?
Because of the European Union. Whenever we open up in the Netherlands for countries like Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, I mean, we see this whole change. At the moment, the majority of the women are Eastern Europe. We got girls from Albania. I mean, how can a girl from Albania, out of a village, I don't know where from, know her way to Amsterdam, know where to live, know how to rent a window? There must be an organized crime behind it.
This is the true face of Holland's experiment.
60 to 70% of the women in this case were being forced to work in legalized prostitution scenes. It is modern slavery. Trafficking human beings is a kind of modern slavery.
5,000 miles away in America, the man who once led the global fight against slavery has long argued that Holland is the cause of, not the solution to, international sex trafficking.
I think all that's happened is the Dutch government has become the super pimp.
For 4 years, John Miller was the US State Department's anti-slavery worldwide ambassador. Today, he sees the history of slavery repeating itself.
The Dutch believe that they're being very sophisticated in regulating. The interesting thing is, this is the exact same approach they took back in the 17th century. The Dutch used to boast about how they had the healthiest slave ships. They had the best ventilation. They had the best rations. They had the best mattresses for the slaves. They provided doctors. But slavery went on and on. All their talk about regulation was an excuse to avoid abolition.
Every year, the US government publishes a report which judges every country in the world on its efforts to stamp out slavery. The Trafficking in Persons, or TIP report, ranks countries that do the most as Tier 1. The State Department has always given Tier 1 status to Holland, despite the vehement opposition of John Miller.
I have visited the red light district. I've seen the young men with the leather jackets standing outside those windows, counting who goes in and making sure they get all the profits. All I can say is, I didn't think, according to our law, that they were Tier 1.
Giving such favored status to rich Western countries which fuel demand for sex slaves angers impoverished source countries like Moldova, not least because its lowly ranking has put it in danger of economic sanctions.
We're not evaluating situations for our American girls who are lured into prostitution because they have been involved, with the city and the state. So we're not catching it there what the problem is, or that they're in prostitution. And very interesting, they did a survey of upstate kids in prostitution in upstate New York and in downstate. In New York City, 44% of the prostitution took place in these hot sheet hotels or outside. So maybe on the track or in a car or something like that. In upstate, 52% of it took place in people's homes. So people were dealing in children out of their homes. And interestingly, the majority in New York City, it was with strangers. Upstate, it was with people that they knew, acquaintances. And 17% of the kids in upstate were used for video pornography. So it's a different makeup. Upstate, it's a little, and it's interesting because some of the legislators that we talked about really would love to say, we don't criminalize our kids up here. We don't do this. You guys do in New York City. But the truth is, it's just more frank here in New York City. It's more of a business. You've got pimps who are putting girls on Craigslist and out on the street. It's a very clear transaction. What you have at other parts of the state would resemble more, sexual abuse and incest in the home. And somebody's making money off of it. Somebody's videotaping it and selling it. Someone's inviting their friends over and making money off of it. So it's a very interesting, the different forms that it's been taking in our state.
I can tell you that the number one problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be pedophilia. That's the biggest problem for children in this industry.
The casting couch even applies to children.
Oh yeah. Not in the same way. It's all done under the radar.
Nobody talks about pedophilia.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh yeah. I was surrounded by them when I was 14 years old. Surrounded. Literally. Didn't even know it. It wasn't until I was old enough to realize what they were and what they wanted and what they were about and the types of people that were surrounding me till I went, oh my God, they were everywhere like vultures.
Is this where you want your children to learn about sex?
It started when I was 8. I found some magazines that belonged to my dad. It progressed from there. Videos, movie houses, and then the internet came around, and pretty soon the fantasy wasn't enough. My first victim was my 5-year-old niece.
And how many victims do you have?
I lost count after 30.
Pornography has its...
It started innocently enough, watching videos with friends. It's very subtle. I thought, when I got married, that the problem would just kind of go away. I hid it. At least I thought I did. It's hard to explain to your wife that you lost your job because you were caught looking up pornography at work. I really don't blame her for leaving. I'd changed.
So what have you done since all this happened to get your family back?
To get help, visit us at utahcoalition.org.
Describe victim characteristics. Even if on the images, we talk a lot in our agency about the child pornographer, a fairly new type of offender relative to other types of offenders. And one of the things that we hear, as we mentioned yesterday, so often is that the child pornographer is not necessarily seen as a sex offender. Well, in fact, he is. And there are a lot of things that we need to know about him.
Of a female, according to separate American and British studies. Although estimates vary, that would suggest 250,000 people in Britain today suffered sex abuse perpetrated by a woman. And yet such allegations are often disbelieved, and there are few prosecutions. In 2007, only 6 women in England and Wales were convicted of sex abuse crimes against children.
Women abuse children for the same reasons that men abuse children, for sexual gratification, for power. Quite frankly, it's something that they enjoy doing. I know that's hard for the rest of us to comprehend, but women are no different than men in that case.
A few weeks ago in Australia, a new TV campaign was launched warning of the risks of sex abuse from those entrusted with the care of children.
This pseudo-child pornography is used by sexual predators to groom children and also encourages men with paedophilic tendencies to become child molesters by legitimizing and normalizing their interest in children. And just as a brief side note, this interesting connection between child molestation and pornography was made by Gail Dines, the well-known fanatical anti-porn crusader, once again acting as a testament to the validity of this article.
January the 21st, 2010, I posted up Kevin Annett's hiddenfromhistory.org. There's a detailed story about the child trafficking that's going on in British Columbia, not to mention the drug trafficking and the prostitution rings that are going on also in Toronto and probably everywhere else where there is higher up money being moved and police corruption. Now we have human organ body parts being transferred globally for big business, big money. Snuff films going on. RCMP are taking the hookers off the street. They are drugging them, raping them on film. And a lot of these times they become snuff films. They can sell these films for $25,000. I can go into the details. I've been having a lot of trouble trying to get this video up, and I've done it several times. But it is on streetnews.com.
Well, communities can set standards for behavior out in the street. You know, communities can set standards for driving too fast. Communities can set standards for zoning and,
so why not
and things like that. Well, because this is private behavior in private homes. I mean, should we say that a community should have the right to ban your program because people don't like your face? You know, I would argue, whether it's your show or Bill O'Reilly's show or anybody else, that we don't want individual communities to decide what kinds of programs people can see in the privacy of their own homes.
Thank you, Marty Klein. Thank you, John Stoliano. I'm glad you're here in the studio with me instead of...
Western countries address the demand for prostitution rather than profit from it. There will always be men like Cavalli and Baran, and there will always be sex slaves behind these windows. In South America, today slavery is illegal in every country on the planet. But the truth is, slavery did not die in the 19th century. It is alive, it is thriving, and it is bigger than ever.